For today's training, I will share with you when to release the pawn tension in chess. And for those who don't know, that's when you make an exchange like one way or the other, to release that tension. If we take our example move for today of the advance variation, that's also releasing the tension just in a different way where we move forward rather than, exchanging. But we release the pressure on d5, which allows black, of course, to put some pressure on our d4 pawn, and we can sort of see already this tension between the pawns on c5 and d4. So now you know what pawn tension is, but what you might not realize is what a big impact it has in often allowing you to outplay the opponent and sort of strategically take control of the game. Now, after the move bishop d3, the move that we're probably going to focus on a little bit more in this short training is going to be if black plays bishop d7, where we're going to follow a game between Nimzovich against Salwa, which I've actually been showing to quite a few private students of mine in the last 6 months or so. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, do make sure to leave a like and also to consider subscribing. That will allow you to see more trainings like this one. So in this position, actually, bishop d7 ends up being a little bit of a mistake, and we'll sort of get into that in a moment. Before I do, I'll point out that black should play the move c takes d4. Now, it's not winning a pawn instantly. Like, you don't want to play knight takes d4, as I did as a 9-year-old, and, lose to this this trap, as it were. That's not something that you want to do here. But on the other hand, if black plays bishop d7, we sort of see it's a little bit hard for white to defend the pawn comfortably. Like bishop c2, knight b4 is going to be a bit awkward, for example. So the modern way that people play this, white, is actually play the move castles, the Hector Gambit, where basically you just let black take on c3. And again, let me ask you this, who do you think benefits from an exchange on c3 in this position if black takes on c3 and white takes back? So the answer is that white's going to be the one who benefits, because the general principle which I kind of covered in my live training in my free Facebook group, Adult Chess Improvers. I put the link to join that free group in the description below, but I made the point in that live training that basically when you're looking at the exchanges, you want to look at where the piece moves sort of to versus from. So basically, we can see that the knight already developed for free with the recapture. It's the same position as a move ago, but where the pawns are traded and the knight is developed, which gives white a bigger lead in development and actually gives some very, very good compensation for the pawn here. And it's a mistake that a lot of your opponents rated below, say, Lichess 1600 or 1800 will make. What black should do instead is they should actually keep the tension with bishop d7. Because again, if white exchanges, black is the one whose pieces are, consistently coming to more active squares through the capture. That's a pretty easy way to tell often whether the exchange is going to be good or not for you, unless there's some tactical trick, but, bishop b5 is not check anymore, so it works out for black. And if white tries to keep the tension, yeah, you kind of just keep the tension as well and sort of wait for him to play a move like knight d2. Then you're sort of more okay with playing dc3 now, because even though white's getting some play with the b file, at least they're not getting in a developing move like the recapture. Did leave them with an isolated pawn on c3, so it's not like it only gives advantages. There are some disadvantages as well of this exchange for white. But yeah, let's go a little bit into the weeds. So let's go and see what happened in the Nimzovich-Salwa game, where, like we saw before, if black gets into cd4, he's going to be relatively happy here. But a nice solution is the way Nimzovich played it with d takes c5. And it might seem a bit weird to give up the center like this, where you're giving black the central majority, but you do still have a space advantage with the pawn on e5. And black can't just play knight e7 without thinking, because then b4 is actually going to trap the bishop. Another good example of pawn play coming into the fore. If they play a move like a5 to try and stop b4, maybe that's the best move, but white's still going to have a pretty easy plan of bringing knight to b3 and just using those weak dark squares to his advantage, as it were. And it's kind of leveraging this long-term space advantage. We don't really need to hurry here as white. We can be a little bit patient. But in the game, Salwa tried to activate with f6. And let me ask you this, what would be your response as white to deal with the tension between the pawns? And yeah, I realize it's going to be slightly longer than the other ones, but I think it's important to do justice to this topic. Because the move that you want to play is probably a move like bishop f4, just keeping the tension. But the problem is if you do it right away, you run into queen b2 and you lose a pawn. Well, maybe you lose 2 pawns as it turns out. But yeah, so that's kind of what you want to do, but we need to sort of prepare it a little bit. Obviously, we don't really want to play ef6, because that's just helping black develop the knight for free. We don't want to give the opponent free developing moves if we can help it. unless we have a very, very good response afterwards. But the move b4 is the key. Once again, we kick their bishop back with tempo, get them off this little battery. And then with the move bishop f4, we can sort of keep that tension. If you want to play like rook e1 and defend that way, that's fine as well. But I like the move that Nimzowitsch played at bishop f4. Because the point is that if you don't take on e5, it's kind of hard to find a great square for the knight. I guess, he could play knight h6. Maybe that's what he should have done in the game, but maybe he was unnecessarily concerned about the double pawns or something. I mean, doubles aren't that big of an issue when you can castle long, I guess, but in the game, black played f takes e5, white took with the knight, and you can sort of see after the exchanges, like, again, white's piece are getting more active with the recapture. We're also hitting the pawn on g7. And in this structure, what you might notice is how white just has this absolute dream blockade, where the d5 pawn's blockaded, the e6 pawn is blockaded as a backward pawn. If they try to play bishop d6 to prepare it, we just go knight f3, and, we're just not going to let him play e5. Like, we just blockade and just have a complete grip over the position. The actual game went a little bit differently, but Nimzowitsch basically went on to go, like, rook e3, swing the rook over, bring the queen in the attack, and basically win the game with the raking bishops. So I hope that you enjoyed this this training. Let me know in the comments below. What was your favourite lesson or idea you got from this training? And is there a topic that you'd like me to cover in future trainings? Look forward to seeing your answers, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.